Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today continuing our look at hidden secrets, and how best to do so but to look at a god whose worshippers are collectors of all the gossip that comes through a city, specifically its red light district. Here today, we talk about Calistria, one of the elven deities and patron of lust, vengeance, and trickery. Let's start the show. Oh, but where can you hear the secrets of Calistria whispered in your ear? Some of the earliest whispers came from Gods and Magic, both editions, and they're gossiping about the gods. But the real, in-depth scoop came from the fifth book of the Second Darkness adventure path, Memory of Darkness. Of course, rumors soon spread to gods of the Inner Sea, where from there it spread everywhere. Being chaotic neutral, she has some deep secrets and faiths of balance. And she has a nice bit of information on her home in Plain Adventures. And, you did not hear this from me, but we have various side tangents today. From sources like Webmaster's Handbook, Animal Archive, and the Starfinder Core Rulebook. Sassy. Many tales exist of Calistria and those who follow in her shadow. There are tales of 3 gods who had the misfortune to die before Calistria had her revenge on them, and so crawl back to living once per year to beg her forgiveness. Some tell of an offshoot of the Aslanti called the Bloodied, who reveled in violence and pleasure, and who are remembered to this day in plays. Some tales tell of her surrenders, ending in convincing others to hand over their weapons to her. When she is part of a conversation, she already has the upper hand, and whether through seduction or violence, she will achieve her goals. Calistria is one of the elven deities, and as one would imagine, appears as an elf. She is also female, but as one might imagine as a deity of lust, she can appear as any gender she wants, and always hot. And with clothing optional, again lust. She has no reason not to appear nude. When she is clothed, it is in clothing which is striped black and yellow, just her favorite animal, the wasp. When she appears in art, the typical worshippers tend not to be shy depicting her in ways which are considered scandalous. Because again, lust. But taking just a step back, I believe it is time for our first side tangent. The part of the show where I go and apparently talk about all the deities at once. Fun. Today we have sacred animals. It is common in any mythology or religion to associate gods with certain animals. And in Pathfinder we have such associations. They are hardly mentioned explicitly. Only real place they are is on the back page of the 1E book Animal Archives. But when they are brought up, it usually makes sense. Going through them almost alphabetically, first is Abadar, the bastion of civilization, who is associated with clever monkeys, noble eagles, hard-working beavers, as well as domesticated animals like cats, dogs, and mouse. Asmodeus, being the devil, is associated with snakes, lions, goats, and roosters. No more needs said, really. Kid and Kaelin, a dog person in life, is associated with hounds, all animals which have escaped captivity, and eagles for some reason. The typical symbolic association is not there, but whatever. Desna, of course, is associated with butterflies, moths, caterpillars, but also dragonflies and sparrows. Aristil, another one you were probably expecting. We have elk and deer, animals with hoofs, all of them, and farm animals. Gorham likes animals trained for war, but has a soft spot in his armor for rhinos and dinosaurs. Gazra, well, all animals. Iomedae has symbols of rulership on her side, the lions and eagles. Iroi has some interesting picks, which makes sense in his own contemplative way. Snails, octopi, mantises, and white tigers. The monster, of course, is associated with jackals and hyenas, and their close cousin, the wolf, as well as all deformed animals. Oh, next is Nethys, god of magic, likes peacocks, whales, and to no one's surprise, zebras. Nogabo likes poisonous spiders, and all poisonous animals, as well as thieving animals like rats, crows, and jackdaws. Pharasma likes the death-rated scarabs and whippoorwills, as well as the long-remembering elephants. Wolvagug, besides ferocious rabid animals, likes the boring scorpions, worms, and spiders. Reminds him of home. Sandray, in her divine light, likes the doves and the falcons, and the lizards who bask in the sun. Shaylin, in her divine beauty, loves the songbird, the swan, the peaceful wolf, the monstrous dolphin, and cats and bunnies. Dolphins are scary. Just look up some information about them. You'll regret you did. Toreg, as a dwarf, loves badgers, armadillos, and all digging animals. Ugathoa is closely related to the death-head's moth, flies, and maggots, as well as eaters of carrion. Zon-Kuthon likes creatures of the dark, like bats and ants and parasites. And finally, Our Lady of the Evening, Calistria, who is famously associated with wasps, because they can survive after they sting, the way she teaches her followers to enjoy their lusts and vengeances. Now, going fully back to Calistria, how does she stand? She stands as one of the personifications of raw sexual energy. When clothed, observers cannot help but picture her naked. When naked, their minds go more specific places. She's able to outsmart the smallest of mortals as a mere afterthought. When editors spend minutes saying she can communicate with a single motion, a single glance. And woe be those who make the mistake of running her ire, because she is an artist in the realm of punishment, and even in death you will fear her revenge. When it comes to loyalty, she is fickle, may even be called evil by some, but in truth she is amoral. The universe is not a fair place, and she is not here to act fair. If she or her followers step on another's toes, they too have the right to seek revenge against her. Many worship Calistria only until needs are fulfilled. If we are talking lifelong worship, it is prostitutes, spies, hedonists, enchanters, illusionists, non-evil assassins, and former slaves who want payback, who see themselves most in her service. Ancestry-wise, it is elves and humans mostly, but those of mixed race are welcomed, especially since so many are likely descendants of Calistria herself. As one would expect, ceremonies of Calistria involve ritual sex, either in temples or in the wilds, asking for her blessings for sex and revenge, or pageants using theater tricks and illusions. Considering Calistria does not expect the followers to mate for life, marriage rules are loose in the faith, and really any relationship that lasts more than a few months is treated as a marriage within the faith. However, while we are on the general topic of elves, let's look at side tangent 2, Winter Council, aka a group I specifically did not talk about last week, so I could talk about this secret society today. They once were advisors of elfin rulers, also serving as ambassadors to Aslan. However, what if the human kingdom already acquired Cloak and Dagger on the elves' part, and that was before Earthfall? By the time elves returned, the Winter Council had become as good as a myth. Then they discovered Drow and made it a point to wipe them out before the whole world knew of their secret cousins. But their attempt to force tradition eventually caused the Hardliners to be disbanded, and now only their hands, the Lantern Bearers, still exist. The Church believes in sacred prostitution, and therefore the clergy make it their mission to protect all those who engage in professional sex. All priests are trained in conversation, body language, and seduction, which allows them to double as, well, the obvious, but also spies, investigators, and smugglers. The priesthood has a loose hierarchy, and most matters are determined democratically instead of by some order of some high priest, though Calistrians still have one of those, which is referred to in the Church as the Revered One. As a deity of freedom, the clergy does not have a typical day, though it is usually filled with stuff like helping people get legal recourse on someone who wronged them, sacred prostitution, and matchmaking. Well, at least for good priests. More evil ones work on collecting blackmail and fanning the flames of jealousy, while more neutral priests give ideas on how to get revenge without injury, and open their temples as places to broker information. Regardless of alignment, priests tend to be good at alchemy, making poisons both lethal and non-lethal. An example of a second being laxatives. Because revenge is sweet, but sometimes it can be a bit smelly. When Calistrians build a temple, it stands as a mansion, with many rooms, all of them which can be locked for obvious reasons. There's often disagreements of Calistrians' core teachings in the faith, and therefore temples tend to lean more towards either lust or revenge, good or evil, depending on each temple. Most temples have wasp nests in the eaves because, again, holy animal, and wealthy temples even employ giant wasps as gods. Shrines, on the other hand, are rare, as traveling is not really what Calistrians do. However, phallic or ionic stones do stand at attention, ready for worship. Also, congratulations, you learned a new word today, if nothing else. Like all elven deities, Calistria finds a home in Elysium. Her realm is the Garden of the Lights and Deceit. This place is famous for those who seek it, being unable to find it, and those who are looking elsewhere, stumbling upon it. It is like the goddess, beautiful, but untrustworthy. While listening to a gentle silence, you'll be able to make out mad buzzing in the distance. And it is not uncommon to find yourself in the middle of a hedge maze, or in front of her pleasure palaces. Those deadly pleasure palaces. Now for a more deep dive into faith. Where is her worship the strongest? First, places with decent elf presence also have temples like Kionin, Varissia, and the River Kingdoms. This spreads to neighboring nations like Gault and Talda, and through trade even to Absalon and Nex. There's also a decent amount of followers in the Shackles, her being a strong faith among pirates, or those that deal with pirates when they're on shore. There is no set holiday for Calistria, and her worship though each temple or each individual has a special day to commemorate old slights or grand tricks they managed to pull. And for holy text, while there are many plays which speak of revenge, it is the Book of Joy the faith holds sacred. It includes illustrations of sex positions, instructions on how to read people, and collections of satisfying stories of revenge. They even create short penny Bibles, which summarize the teaching, usually especially the sex part, to tempt people into the faith. Which brings us to Side Tangent 3, another divine fighting style hidden weapons master handbook, which also means unfortunately there's no book or history behind this one, but oh well, c'est la vie. Calistria's Poison Lash is a perfect addition to any rogue slayer, especially those who favor poison. It allows one to easily apply poison to whips, and use it to poison all who come in contact with it. And with training, one can apply it even faster, and more doses of poison can be applied at once. It's a pretty simple and straightforward style for a deity of trickery, but it definitely works when needed. Now to get to the end, let's look at those who stand beside Calistria, well, for more than one night. Starting on her allies and the sexual side of the spectrum, we have Velvet Wing, a unique Vendonoptrix, or wasp fairy-like outsider. This one easily mistaken for a succubus, which, when your kisses drain people's minds, that tends to happen. Turtlebar is a chaos beast who, like most of his kin, can change forms, but his usual appearance is as a mound of flesh, constantly growing and reabsorbing mouths. And if you think that's bad, he likes being paid in sexual favors, because of course it does. Moving on to the revenge side, we have Trev, a frog-like protean. He offers discounts to people seeking revenge, but hates people who lie to him. And whenever Trev is not enough, Calistria sends her herald, Menotherian. This creature can appear as either a perfect elf or a bear-sized wasp. She has a physical body, and sometimes seeks out hot male elves to, well, we know which god she serves, so. As for relationships with other deities, she and Shaylin split love and lust between them, and therefore have a quite cordial relationship. Calistria is not a fan of Ugathor's overall stench, but enjoys her lustful life. Calistria and Norgabur work well together, while never truly trusting the other. She respects Desna, but thinks she needs to let go of the past and have more fun in her life. And, Kid and Kaelin, well, everyone's heard those rumors. Before we end off, one final side tangent. How is Calistria doing in the distant future of Starfinder? She herself is doing fine, not seeming to be much different from her classical self. It is the elves who have changed. They have gotten more xenophobic over the gap, to where they believe all other species are potential enemies, and so they have isolated themselves. And Calistria, their remaining patron, has joined them, now being mostly only worshipped by elves. So, especially since the elves want to get back at the one responsible for the gap, meaning it is a perfect place to be a deity of revenge. And that ends today's video. It is good every now and then to get a reminder that Pathfinder is not really marketed at children, and that this channel is not made for children. Either way, coming up soon is the actual Dark Archives, likely starting to ship next week. Also, shout out to all the previews we've been getting. It's always been good to read one's whistle beforehand, but I Despite that, I cannot wait to get my hands on the actual juicy secrets. But we have a topic next week which should get one in the mood for the book, and be a good prepper for one of the first chapters. But I'll see you then.